And welcome to another Mental Wealth Moves podcast. I'm your host, Casey Dubravcic, and today we're talking about GLP-1s, glucagon-like peptides. We're talking about Tirzepatide, Semaglutide, we're talking about those Mounjaros, Wegovys, those medications that are becoming more and more ubiquitous, more and more used. Today we talk about how to best use those medications, as well as how they can be used as a catalyst for change. Let's help you win your first race if needed, and then let's get you off of them. I don't want anyone on anything indefinitely. So let's jump right in. I'm excited for you to learn with us. So today we are talking about peptides, and I wanted to kind of share some of our ethos here at Rocked and Revitalized, so that people can get to know, why we're doing what we're doing and how we go about things, and also to potentially help people understand a little bit more how GLP-1s work, how they were found and what they're derived from, as well as like how we think that they should be used. And a hint, I think they should be used similarly to ketamine, in that less is more, and in that we should be using this as a catalyst for change so that you can really get the most out of the treatments. And so I am Casey Dubravcic. I am the owner and founder of Revitalized Ketamine Clinic, as well as Rocked Wellness Bar. And so I wanted to kind of show about me. I've been kind of through the gambit of healthcare and more or less got pretty jaded on the traditional treatments, in that they are treating symptoms of underlying problems and not necessarily the problems that are causing the symptoms. And so I think that it's really important, as we go into like peptide treatments, that we have that bigger discussion. Like, I'm always going to do kind of a deep dive in where people are coming from, because it's so important to understand the big picture. So if you're stressed chronically, your body kind of thinks that, hey, there's a real high likelihood that I may be going into starvation sooner than later. And so with that, I think it's important to know that your body thinks it might starve, and so it's going to hold on to extra weight. And so if we can de-stress, if we can get you out of that fight, flight, or freeze, that's going to be more powerful than just anything else really we can do for people. And so having that bigger conversation, having kind of that deep dive, I'm super passionate about that. I've been in ICU, CVICU, pre-op PACU, inpatient, outpatient behavioral health units. I'm trained in electroconvulsive therapy, and then also inpatient, outpatient units at the community mental health center. Kind of saw people at their worst. Really don't like any diagnoses besides trauma anymore. And so really try to dive into, what's causing that. So like the body keeps the score, right? Bessel van der Kolk's work, groundbreaking work. I don't recommend that people really read that book, just because it can be so activating, particularly if you have trauma. This Bessel van der Kolk's delivery method is very, I would say, surgical. And so it can be quite activating, a secondary trauma for those who have trauma reading that book. So that being said, I do like it when people understand the footnotes of it. And really the long and the short of the footnotes are that your body keeps the score. It holds past trauma as inflammation, as pain. And then when you're chronically inflamed, it's really hard to lose weight. Again, the body is trying to protect you by saying, hey, this environment is very unsafe. There's a really good chance that getting away from it would be very helpful. That being said, if I go away from where I'm getting my meals, there's a really good chance that I might starve. So I'm going to create a bunch of internal situations that are going to make it more likely for me to have more adipose to run off of for an extended period. So really having that emotional release can be so helpful. All right. So again, a little bit about my ethos, why Rocked. And so I think that it's really important to recognize that, again, everything comes from trauma. The big capital bold T's of trauma, little italic T's of trauma. And, really, I want to help people treat the problems causing the symptoms.
outcomes. So I don't want people that just have a medication, just like a GLP-1 all by itself without any wraparound care. And so, like, I think Peak Aesthetic and Wellness, thanks for joining. I think you guys have GLP-1s, or maybe I'm erroneous in that assumption, but really, we want to partner with other people in the community. There's a lot of people suffering out there, and like, I think more people having more access is better. And so a lot of the wraparound stuff we do really is so important to kind of reiterate the need of. That's why GLP-1s, I think, have a bit of a bad rap, in that the people are like, oh, you get on that, you're never coming off of it. Well, yeah, you'll never come off of it if you don't shift anything that's causing the obesity in the first place, right? Again, 3 big things: you need to move more, you need to eat less, and you need to de-stress. And so that stress causes those hormonal changes that make you hold on to central obesity and make you hold on to adipose, trying to protect yourself. And so, what are peptides? So again, I had the projector set up, and then Google Chrome passes being super fun. So they're short chains of amino acids. So you go past 50 and you go to protein. Before that, it's peptide. And so there's lots of cool peptides out there. Like, a lot of them have been kind of shut down by the FDA, unfortunately. There's like the BPC 157, which is a peptide. There's TB500. There's some other peptides that are similar, just strings of amino acids that do very, very different things than what we're trying to get out of Tirzepatide or Semaglutide. And those are the main peptides we're talking about tonight. I do want to have another peptide talk where I jump into more of those regenerative medicine peptides. And so there's pentadecaarginate, which is like really close to BPC 157, and really like the animal studies are crazy, and the anecdotal stories are pretty wild too. People completely like ruptured ACL that'll actually regrow with subcutaneous centralized kind of administration. So that's a bigger topic, or not really bigger, but it's a different topic. People are here for the Tirzepatide and the Semaglutide, so I want to focus on that. But this is like kind of the science of peptides and where they come from. So again, there's lots of peptides out there. Tonight we're talking about weight loss. We know these peptides were found in Gila monsters, actually. Pretty interesting stuff. So this Exendin 4 was derived from Gila monsters as like part of their venom, and also as part of them not needing to eat for like 6 months at a time. And so it's pretty interesting, naturally created, and then we're like, hey, what if we do this to animal studies? And they recognize like a better glucose metabolism, more breaking down of glucagon, adipose and stores and tissues and fats went down dramatically. And so initially, the first peptide, I think, came out in the early 2000s, Ribellus. And that was in Great Britain under a pharmaceutical, and it was a synthetic Exendin. Was just derived from the Gila monsters. And with that, they were able to significantly reduce the sequela of type 2 diabetes issues, right? Like all those things, like your veins get hardened, you start going to kidney failure when you're, riding high, like 200 blood sugar kind of chronically. And so that's where these peptides really came out, was they were really trying to help people with diabetes. And, it's, again, I'm not a huge proponent of the pill for every problem mentality. That being said, I liked what another clinician had said. It's like, let's shoot the crocodile closest to the boat, right? We know obesity causes a significant amount of issues kind of long-term. And so with getting those first wins, and that's what we're super passionate about here at Rocked and Revitalized, is helping people get those first couple wins so that they can start feeling good, they can start showing up to workouts, they can start using like our treatment modalities like the cold plunge and the infrared sauna and the hug flower and red light therapy. And then being around people also trying to do that, right? Like, you hang out with 5 smokers, you're probably going to become a smoker. You hang out with 5 obese people, you're probably going to be an obese person. That being said, all those are breakable cycles. And so that's why we really think it's important to look at the whole picture, right? There's no silver bullet, there's no panacea, there's no cure-all. There's a million silver BBs. So the more kind of angles we can address a problem from, the more likely we are to get capture. And I think that's so important to kind of reiterate. And so again, I had the projector set up behind me, and then the Google Chromecast was being mean to me and made me feel silly. So that's why I'm starting late tonight. And there's other adjectives that I would use, but I'm not sure who's on the call. So again, win that first race, right? That's going to cause kind of that, we can all cycle upwards and we can cycle downwards, right? And so particularly with the holidays here, and people already probably with some the SAD diet, right? The standard American diet, we know it increases inflammation, it increases depression, increases anxiety, and decreases focus and attention. We don't know like every little bit of it, but we think we have a large part to do with the food stabilizers. So basically, the long and the short of that guidance is that you should shop the periphery of the grocery store, like the fresh fruits and vegetables, the lean proteins, the non-refined carbohydrates. That being said, real recently, some cool evidence came out that, cool if you count that, so we're always evolving, right? We're all works in progress. So fruits and vegetables, they lose a ton of nutrient density in transit. So basically, within 4 to 6 hours of plucking something off of a vine, they lose a significant amount of nutrient density, between like 40 and 90% in transit by the time you take it off the shelf and you take it home and you cook it or eat it raw even. And so actually the flash frozen vegetables, which are significantly cheaper, have a higher nutrient density. And I just heard about that probably like a month ago. So that was interesting, and they're cheaper, so you should think about that. Let's see. And so here's how the peptides work. And so again, the GLP-1, the glucagon-like peptide, it enhances that insulin secretion, and it delays the gastric emptying, so people feel fuller longer. It reduces glucagon levels, and then it helps really significantly with cravings. And so a lot of people eat because they're bored, right? Like most people don't lose weight in the gym, they lose weight away from the pantry, right? And so like having that pantry available with kind of ubiquitous calories and that availability of that really high, densely caloric food, not great for us. I mean, it's great tasting sometimes. I like to say everything in moderation, including moderation. And so like basically I don't want people to show up with boiled chicken to a birthday party, right? I want you to be able to eat that scoop of ice cream, eat that slice of cake mindfully, right? When you're on slice 6 or 7 or scoop 6 or 7, you might want to take a step back. Like, am I self-medicating to some aspect with this stuff? And potentially you are, but potentially I am. And so the long and the short of it is they decrease appetite and they decrease caloric intake, and they cause improved glycemic control, which thereby leads to a lot of downstream positives. And so the tirzepatide is the GLP-1 and GIP, the gastric inhibitory polypeptide. So basically, like we've been terming tirzepatide as like semaglutide 2.0. There's less side effects, is what we see, and there's better treatment outcomes. It is more expensive, and so you kind of pay to play with that. I really don't like giving a semaglutide to anyone anymore, just because like it doesn't work that well comparatively, and it's also like more side effects. So like, if you're going to pay that much for a medication, you might as well pay for one that I feel is better. And so some of the benefits of peptide therapies, that sustained weight loss, right? Average weight loss, 15 to 20%, a body weight over 68 weeks. That's the semaglutide one. Tirzepatide's a little bit better than that. The metabolic health, so you improve that insulin sensitivity and your lipid profiles. So like your HDL tends to go up. That's your high density lipid profile, and that's a good one. That one's actually myocardial protective, protects your heart. Again, I used to work in the CVICU, so like I'd see people, the genetics in addition to the lifestyle, and it's a combination of things, as everything is. And so that cardiovascular function, the LDLs go down, right? The total lipids go down for most people. And let's see, reduction of heart disease risk, reduction of like chronic kidney disease, because again, you're reducing that chronic kind of stress level. It's basically hardening of your arteries and veins. And so like I've done heart caths, so I didn't do them, but I was there for them. And like how fragile the tissue is with a chronic diabetic of like a hemoglobin A1C, which is like a measurement of your kind of average, your average estimated glucose over the last 3 months. It's measured off of your hemoglobin, and those red blood cells, erythrocytes, recycle every 3 months or so. And so it's really interesting to see those numbers go down. And I'm a huge fan. I like having some data to go with what we're doing. It just makes people feel better. Like, oh, look at that. Look, you're doing something. Yay. And so then support for obesity-related conditions, right? Like type 2 diabetes can be like cured, which is awesome, right? Like that's something that like people are just on insulin forever. But if we can get them like less obese, honestly, then your body isn't as taxed constantly. And so that's pretty rad. Hypertension, again, the hardening of the arteries, that goes down as well. And so like, and again, multimodal, right? And so if we can reduce stress, that's also important. And then non-alcoholic fatty liver disease goes down pretty dramatically too. Again, kind of that stress level, chronic stress level of that high blood sugar. Some clinical evidence supporting the peptide therapies. Again, I'm a psychiatric mental illness practitioner, so I got to do some kind of evidence, right? It can't all be just hearsay. So the STEP trials, there's this Semaglutide treatment effect on people with obesity, 15% average weight reduction over 68 weeks. And I think it's super important to recognize that like with those kind of trials, they don't do any other things. Like it's just, you get a shot and like, because of the way that those trials work. And so in general, like a 15%, like that's awesome. Like with no other kind of, no other implementation, no other kind of interventions going on medically or psychologically or physically or spiritually, right? Like I think we did a real disservice in medicine when we took medical, like physical, and said this is its own thing. Like it isn't tied to mental and it isn't tied to spiritual. And I really think that everything goes together, right? Like, and this is spiritual how you want, but like I think it's like living a life on purpose, right? Like feeling plugged in, feeling connected to people. Or my buddy said it really well, I think. It's like where you see overlap is where you see the truth. And so, you know, I think all organized religions have a lot right and they all have some wrong. And so like really it's plugging into that understanding in addition to mental, like psychological, right? Like if you're in a chronically stressed state, we're going to find some physical stuff wrong with you, right? Like so, like chronic inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease. I look at these people and I do like an ACEs score, an adverse childhood experiences score, or I check their PHQ-9 and G87, and they've been living in this pucker state for as long as they can remember. And so, like, if you can get them out of that pucker state, like, I think the gazelle gets caught by the lion, right? So, like, the gazelle goes into that fight, flight, or freeze state, and is like, oh, no, I'm, dead for. And the lion's like, cool, I got my prey, starts stalking around being a lion, loses attention for a moment. The gazelle realizes it's got an opening, it pops up, and it runs. And then 3 to 5 miles down the road, it's got this physiological shudder, this release. That's still built into our DNA as humans. And so if you're living in that fight, there's actually 7 Fs, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, there's 7 of them. And they're all kind of that pucker state, I think. And there's different words that can be much more resonant with people. And so if, fight, flight, or freeze don't seem to resonate with you, you should look up the rest of the 7 Fs. And you should see if that resonates with some of you, what you're holding on to. Because 2 things I like to say to all the clients I see is you need to name it to tame it, right? You need to give it weight and the gravity it deserves. And then you need to feel it to heal it. So it's like really cool to look at those studies of tears, like the chemical composition of tears, with like really sad tears versus really happy tears, like completely different. And so you're actually clearing stuff out that's like held at like a deep core level. Hey Cindy, thanks for joining. And so let's see. And then there's the Surmount study. So that was Tirzepatide. And so you can see that was more effective, and that's what we see too. And again, this is if you're just doing the medication, you aren't doing anything else. And so, in conclusion with the studies, those peptides are very scientifically validated and all by themselves. And that's not how I like to do it. I don't think anything should be given by itself. Again, the more avenues you address a problem from, the more likely you are to get capture. And so with that, I think those weight loss outcomes, when you combine them with lifestyle and community and other interventions that we know are super helpful, you're gonna get even more out of it, and that's what we see. And so we're seeing like next level results here at Rocked with our weight loss program, and it's been so cool to see like people be able to let go of so much junk they're holding on to, and again, multimodal approach. And so contraindications, nothing's like safe for everybody. And so things you should avoid peptide therapies, any thyroid stuff, like any thyroid cancers, like you shouldn't play with any GLP-1s. And so that's what those are, anything thyroid and medullary cancer or carcinoma. So if you have a history of that or a familial history of that, like we're gonna do an in-depth medical evaluation and determine if you have risk factors, and then we're going to have a discussion about is this really the best move for you? I don't know. And a history of pancreatitis, any severe gastrointestinal disorders like gastroparesis. And if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, like we know you need more calories to grow that baby, and we know you need calories to feed that baby. And so if we put you in a state of starvation, that's not a good thing. So safety first. Again, we do a comprehensive medical and psychiatric history. Again, I think it's super important to look at the whole picture. Move more, eat less, and de-stress, right? That de-stress part is huge, because you can do those other two, and if you don't do that third one, you're never going to lose the weight, because your body's trying to keep you physically safe. And so, yeah, so we dive deep on that stuff. Some potential pitfalls and challenges, and I think anyone who prescribes the GLPs should. Common side effects: nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, fatigue, dizziness, headache. I'd say those are less common, but they're definitely, common enough to mention. Some challenges, adherence to treatment, because, it's an injectable and there's medications, and sometimes you do compounded, some you do prescription from like the brand names, and really, trying to make sure we commit to whatever we're going to do for a time frame, and that we do it responsibly, in that, we really don't want anyone losing more than 2.5 pounds a week. If you start losing more than that and you're not doing augmenting strategies like red light therapy, infrared sauna, cold plunging, the hug flower lymphatic massage, you're going to likely get more stretch marks, you're going to likely get more skin folds, regardless, with a significant amount of weight loss. And so, and physical activity obviously is so important. Some mitigation strategies. So again, really like less is more. And so I don't want to hit people with high doses right away if we don't need it. And I like multimodal approach. I'm really a big fan of MIC, which is methadone, inositol, choline, and cyanocobalamin, B12. It's been super cool to be able to help people help themselves with that. And that's really our ethos, like through and through with our clinics, is like I'm not the healer, right? Like I'm turning that key so you can do the work. Like here are the tools. Like I've determined that carrying people over the finish line, first, it's not sustainable, and secondly, like it isn't good for either of us, right? Like when we're doing that. So some mitigation strategies, again, the gradual dose escalation. We don't want to do too fast. It can really be bad. And more side effects, that sort of thing. Again, Tirzepatide, much better tolerated, I would say, than Semaglutide. And then the supportive therapies, so like we're looking at making sure that your electrolytes are tuned up. We're making sure we aren't going too fast, too hard. And we're also, thinking about potential augmentation strategies like the revitalizers, the modified Myers cocktails, making sure your labs are in order, making sure we aren't having any ectopy, like we can do electrocardiograms and that sort of thing. And then, there it is, look at that. Move more, eat less, de-stress. I like the de-stress part a lot, because I think so many people don't concentrate on that with weight loss. Again, if you don't de-stress, you're going to not notice as many positive benefits, and sometimes like no benefits. So really looking at, okay, the whole picture, right? So here's our weight loss protocol and our guaranteed weight loss program. So we know if we do all these things, the vibration plate, kind of, the good vibrations, you start getting things loose, increase cellular regeneration, increase kind of lymphatic flow, a bunch of other things that are really good and helpful for getting started on the weight loss. The second thing is that red light therapy. Oh my gosh, so good for so many reasons. We're just beginning to understand some of the science of red light therapy. We know it's super important to recognize which nanometers and wavelengths you're getting. And so, we're really big fans of that. And then also the hug flower, right, with the lymphatic massage. And so that's, the body keeps the score again, Bessel van der Kolk's work, right? So we're just scratching the surface on the science of all this. We're all holding neuro-emotional complexes, is what we're calling them. There's the inflammatory corticoid clusters that appear tied to past emotionality, unfelt, unseen, unheard, unrecognized, and not given the weight it deserves emotionality. So at some point, often in childhood, it wasn't safe to feel feelings, so it gets shoved down. And then it gets held in the lymphatic tissue, or gets held in the connective tissue more commonly when it's early stuff, like even in utero trauma, when people are exposed to an unhealthy, sad mother who's carrying a baby, that translates to adulthood, and it's healable, so I think that's super important to recognize. All trauma, those big capital bold T's of trauma, little italic T's of trauma, they're all healable and integratable, given the right setting, and circumstances. And so nobody needs any of the medications that I prescribe as a prescriber. They're all amplifiers of things that we're already doing. Basically, we're trying to help with those past traumas, like your own stuff that happened to you since conception, your great-grandparents' stuff that you carry around with you, the societal stuff that we all end up carrying, and that environmental stuff that we're all exposed to. And so we know between the treatment modalities that we're doing here, that's so passionate about with Rocked, really allows for you to kind of go through deeply what you've been holding on to and clear it out. Again, name it to tame it and feel it to heal it. So we get some people blubbering in the hug flower with the harmonizer on their chest and just feel so freaking good afterwards. I didn't even know I was holding on to that, right? And then that that cellular level sigh, that release, is so powerful, and it's so cool to see. Again, multimodal. And so we do have a guaranteed weight loss program that we just recently started offering. It's a 6-month, go back. I pressed a button. And so it is a full program. Again, the GLP-1s are just a piece of the puzzle. We can also do the MIC with the GLP-1s if needed. Again, I like people to win the first race, right? I think that's so important to kind of start that cycle upwards and then really put into place those bigger tools and those bigger lifestyle modifications that we know long-term will help more than anything. I don't think anything's inherently bad, right, or good. The dose makes the medicine and the dose makes the poison, right? And so again, if you're, you can be really skinny and unhealthy and be really overweight and unhealthy. And same thing with food. I don't care what you eat as much as you're really taking the time. Everything should be kept sacred, I think, in that you're feeding this body, you're putting energy out into the universe, and you should do your best, right? I listened to a talk today, and two things, do what you say you're gonna do, and then 2, leave things better than you found them, right? And so that goes for everything. Anyone you run into, any work that you're doing. And so, what did he say? Leave things better than you found them in, do what you say you're going to do before it became inconvenient. That was what he said. He cracks me up. I like his stuff. Alex Hormozi is that guy's name. And let's see. There is hope. We can help. Of course, we offer these things, right? As a catalyst for change. Nothing's a panacea, nothing's a cure-all, no silver bullet, a million silver BBs. And so with that, we want to create in you and cultivate a lifestyle that will allow you to continue this work without GLP-1s, right? May you need them for a little while if you're, incredibly obese? Yeah. Or if you're like really stuck and that emotionality portion is causing, more distress. And so it's a 6-month program. We only do the medications for 4 of those months ideally. We want to set and stage like right in the beginning, like those kind of healthy lifestyle modifications. And then like the middle 4 months, like we want to hit it hard in every which way we can. We can jump on the meds a little bit earlier if we need to. And then like, we want to get you in that community. We want to help you, like help yourself, right? Like we're all a combination of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So being around people who are also trying to become the best versions of themselves, like that's what we're all about. And that's what we're really trying to create here with the wellness bar, right? So, we know that these things are super helpful, especially when given with other stuff. So important. Let's see. So some testimonials, some success stories, right? If you like to hear that. So I got one person, 40 something, been in the program for 4 weeks and I already lost 10 plus pounds, despite being like stupid sick, and just kind of at home for like over a week. So that's pretty cool. And then another client, right around 40 in the program for 10 weeks and lost 20 pounds. And so like, and she didn't have all these other augmenting modalities that we pretty much just launched, so I'm super excited for all of that. Rocked as a revitalize, optimize, and harmonize clinic and therapeutics, right? So revitalize is recognizing that things could be better, right? That's the revitalization process. The optimizing is like starting that work. And so like that means climbing out of that pit for a lot of people. And then harmonizing is like, how do we live out of here? How do I live a life worth living? How do I feel good like on a day-to-day basis? Like so many people are so stuck and it's so sad. Makes me sad to see and feel. And there's so many cool tools available now that really help people treat the problems causing the symptoms. And I feel like it's such an exciting time to be in medicine because we're actually proving past wisdom with science, which is super cool. All right, let's see. This person lost over 80 pounds and like really started setting better boundaries for themselves, started more hope. Like the treatments that we helped her with, she said literally changed her life, and in some ways saved her life. So really cool, right? Hearing that. And then another client that we worked with was over 300 pounds at their heaviest, lost over 100 pounds so far, and has been really noticing a lot of positive shifts and improvements, which is super cool. And so like if you're struggling, if you feel like things could be better, like we can probably help, is the long and the short of it. Not everyone's a good candidate. Like if you aren't ready to like show up for yourself, like don't do it yet. Like wait till you're ready. That's the biggest prognostic factor. I feel like if you want it, like we can help you get there. And then we have that special right now, the Taste of Wellness special. I don't know if anyone on here has seen that one, but so basically you get a trial of our services here at Rock for only $29, and then you can actually roll that into your first month of service if you decide to get a membership. Most people really like what we have to offer, but like some people already have their stuff and they just want to come in and hang out for a little bit. That's totally cool too. So we like to run people through our like kind of protocol, and so you do the vibration plate first, so good for like cellular regeneration, kind of waking things up, your body included. And then you go into the hug flower with the red light therapy. That hug flower, oh my gosh, like best hug you ever had. No touch, no tip massage. People love that thing. And then 3, we're going to infrared sauna, the sunlight and infrared sauna. That thing's magical. Basically the latest evidence says if you aren't saunaing, like, you're really doing yourself a disservice. The amount of toxins that we're exposed to on a day-to-day basis, like this one right here in particular, 5G, right? Our digital leashes, so much, room for improvement there. And then let's see, Yeah, so give us a call, check out our website, book a wellness consultation, or book that taste of wellness. And we're going live in Prescott Valley this weekend too. I'm super excited. Lots of cool stuff. Give the gift of wellness. If you know someone struggling, or if you yourself are struggling, and you want to feel better than you currently feel, like, there is hope, and we can help. And again, we help you to help yourself. And that's like, horse to water, make a drink kind of thing. Is like, or no, that's not the best analogy. The fish, right? Like, I give you a fish, you eat for a day. I teach you how to fish, like, you eat for your life, right? And so we know we have the tools, we know we have the expertise, and we know that we can really make a big difference for people in their lives. And so, like, I don't care who you see, but if you're struggling, like, go see someone. Like, get something. There's a ton of tools out there that can really help you. And if you feel stuck at all and you want our help, we're happy to help. Like, we can prescribe anywhere in Arizona. Again, for the guaranteed program, like, we need some physical connection because the meds by themselves often aren't enough, right? And that's good, right? Like, we don't want a panacea. We don't want a cure-all. We're holistic beings. We should be treated holistically. And so, again, I think that de-stress part of the three, right? Like, move more, eat less, de-stress. Like, the de-stressing part is so huge. And the GLP-1s seem to, like, overcome that for a lot of people, which is bonkers to me. But they work. They really do. They work really well. And so, check out our website, or give us a buzz, or hit me up directly, send direct messages. That's totally cool. This is a reference slide because, again, science, right? All right, well, that'll do it for tonight. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Hopefully this was informative and you enjoyed my presentation style.
Thanks for tuning in to this Mental Wealth Moves podcast. I hope that this talk was enlightening and that you know more about GLP-1s than ever. If you'd like to learn more about the way we do things, you can send us a direct message. You can comment on this video, and you can also check out our websites, www.revitalizeketamine.com and www.rohct.com. Thanks so much. Make it a great day. Remember, what's good for you is good for the universe. Also, the best investment you can ever make is in yourself.